Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today we have a Mr. Negative Sera deck, and the aim of this deck, it's a low to the ground, a low curve deck, and so the aim is to always push a decent amount of power onto the board. No matter if you get your Mr. Negative, no matter what order you draw your cards, you want to be able to do a consistent amount of power with the potential to have a pretty good high roll. If you get your Iron Man, your Mystique inverted, you can start doing some really big combos and some really big power onto the board. Now, if you've been around the game for a while, you know that this is very close to the Negative Seratonin list that we had in earlier beta that was just absolutely absurd. It has been nerfed, it's not quite as good as it was then, but I found that this deck can do pretty decently into most of the decks. It does struggle sometimes against Thanos unless you get your high roll, so you get an early Mr. Negative. You get your inverted Iron Man, Mystique, and then the ability to flood some of those cards onto the board so that you're protected from a card like Arrow. Otherwise, most other decks it does pretty good into. If the opponent does a Shuri into Red Skull, a lot of times you can sneak that lane away with your Iron Man. All of a sudden, that 8 power that they're sending you from Red Skull becomes 16, and then in addition to that, if it's an inverted Iron Man, if you've used Bast, you're then continuing to push more and more power, and a lot of times it'll surprise the opponent and they might not invest additional resources into that lane. Now, I've tried several different versions of this. I've played more Negative Seratonin in the last couple of days than I care to admit. I jumped from 86-ish up to 94. At one point I was 97, and then I tried a couple of different techs. I dropped down a little bit. I tried a shell that ran magic, and right now with as many reality stones and other ways for the opponents to change that location and kind of sneak it out from under you, it never really felt like it was very safe or secure to be able to extend the game and rely on that additional turn. Additionally, I ran something without Adam Warlock and I ran Hawk in its place, but without any kind of enablers. If you hit that inversion, it's a 0-10, which is pretty good. But if you don't hit the enabler, it's a 4-6 usually, which could be much, much better. And then at one point, I had dropped both Adam Warlock and Mojo for Hawk and Jubilee. That way you could lean into Zabu a little bit more. And there were a couple of games where Jubilee was able to pull the Mystique, which copied the Iron Man I had played, but it all came down to a Hail Mary, a lucky pull, if I could make it hit or not, and it didn't feel incredibly consistent. So I ended up cutting both of those, and this is what we settled on. I've seen a few versions of this, but the idea is that Bast is pretty much core in any kind of Mr. Negative deck that you're going to be running, because you want to be able to potentially offset that negative power and push it back up to 3. We also have the Iron Man and Mystique. If we get unlucky and we draw into those instead of having them inverted, Bast is going to be able to give us its 6 power that it adds to both of those if they are the Iron Man ability, because they're going to duplicate the 3 power he gives them. And then he also gives a good jump start to our Angela, our Adam Warlock, and our Bishop to be able to find ways to get additional card draws, to get additional power on the board. And that's what the deck wants to do, is push power onto the board wherever it can. I think after nerfs come down, if we're still not seeing much Enchantress, if we're not seeing much Rogue, then I think this might sneak its way back in. And with some cards that are scheduled to release pretty soon, I think we might even see some additional cool versions of this. You might see one that has Hitmonkey in as a last turn, just flood everything onto the board and have a massive Hitmonkey in the process. But overall, the deck has been incredibly fun. I really enjoy a Mr. Negative deck, even though it's not always the most competitive. This one feels like it gives you the most consistent output that a Mr. Negative can. And so with the brief deck explanation out of the way, let's go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, first up we have Monkberry, and the first location is Space Throne. With this particular negative list, we usually lean very heavily on like spreading a lot of power out onto the board and not really stacking really tall. So Space Throne is really difficult for us to win. We also don't use any kind of like magic or storm or any kind of location change. Usually it's just a little bit less impactful to do so. It looks like they're running Jeff's bounce deck, which admittedly has taken the ladder by storm. But I think we're going to play our Mr. Negative into Murder World. If they use their Hawk in Space Throne, which they may either use it here or here, we can try to angle our Rogue if we draw into it to be able to find that way to win. And they don't know. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Resilient. The first location is Icebox. It hits our Adam Warlock, so we're not going to be able to use that to try. Well, we probably won't be able to use that, at least not as easily, to get some additional card draw. Now, we do draw our Bast, so we can go ahead and just play Bast to the left. That will allow us to do maybe Warlock to the right. We get the pretty good flip of the Bast. They play Lizard, so it looks like a Shuri deck. Savage Lands come down in the right lane, so maybe we just Adam Warlock over there. We can then maybe on 5 just push our Iron Man. I don't know. We'll see. They're probably running a Shuri deck. Shuri decks typically won't run a Shang-Chi, so I think we're okay here. They are protecting their big monster. And so we will get one additional draw from our Adam Warlock. So that maybe... Nope. Still no Mr. Negative. We do have Sero that we can use on 5. But I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be anywhere near enough. We have Wolfsbane that will be able to become a 7 power card, which is really good for 3 cost. The Killmonger is interesting in this tech, and it actually clears up some of our space. And so we're okay with that because... Okay, so we do get Mystique now. So we could do Sarah here. That would allow us to do an Iron Man and a Mystique, maybe? We won't be able to fully cap out either of the lanes without actually hitting Mr. Negative. It makes our curve a little bit too big, but we can still push a decent amount of power. It's just a little bit clunkier. We can't flood it, so we're not as arrow-proof as if we would have hit the Mr. Negative portion. All right, so the Cosmo in the right lane, Daredevil mid. Interesting. So it's not... I don't know what kind of deck this is that's running the Daredevil. If they have arrow and they arrow us to the left, it's unfortunate. If not, we get 3, we get 5 extra power here. This is going to be a 20 power lane. This is going to be a 26 power lane. We get a decent amount of power in both the left and middle locations. Now, it's not the high roll of Mr. Negative, but still being able to push about 40 or so power is relatively decent. And we will see one of these games play out eventually, but they do end up retreating. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have G-Man. The first location is Plunder Castle, so we are not able to play anything into that location. Let's do our Angela into Miniaturized Lab. Next turn, we'll probably play Bishop to the right, as we're getting some information into what kind of deck they're running. The Domino, you don't see that often. It feels like Jeff has kind of stopped leaning towards that as much. And so I've seen Domino a lot less frequently, but I still see it sometimes in like a Silver Surfer deck that uses like the base cards. So like Killmonger, it uses Cosmo, a couple of those other 3 cost cards, like powerful 3 cost cards. So like your Maximus, your Polaris. And so they're not really able to push into the Plunder Castle, right? Ooh, wait, the Zero is, maybe it's a Cerebro 3 and it just runs Domino? Has to be Cerebro 3. Interesting. We'll take it. We don't have very many 3 cost cards in our deck. We don't have any in our deck, actually. If they use Cerebro, then we can steal it with Rogue. I think they're in a tough spot, so we're going to try and put the pressure on. We're going to try and entice them into retreating. I'm going to use Killmonger to destroy the Zero. That way we don't have to worry as much about Adam Warlock getting additional draws for them. And so they do have the Blade. We actually hit both of those with the Killmonger, which is beautiful. Beautiful for us. If we clear out that right lane, we know that they're probably not going to be able to play in this left lane at all, which is also very, very beautiful. I'm going to do the Mojo and the Wolfsbane. We could extend the game, but I don't feel like we need to. We're going to push for quite a bit of power here. Next turn, we could do... Oh, we should have done Mojo last. I don't know. That way we could at least copy it. All right, and so they play a couple. They play Bast, which is they got from us, which is good. It sets all their stuff to 3. If they have the Mojo, that's pretty decent for them. I think we're going to do one of these numbers. Just to push a little bit of power. They can't play into Plunder Castle. We know that. So I'm okay staying here, even though this is a very subpar, suboptimal hand. Even if we had saved for Mojo to copy with the Mystique, we can't fill up this middle location, so it really doesn't matter. Now they have to wonder if it's worth filling up the far right lane, the Weird World, because then they would give us the additional 6 on our Mojo. And if not, they're going to have to overcome 13 extra power here compared to what we're pushing. Okay, and so we do get the 2-cube retreat. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, so next up we have Babby, and I think they're a bot. I don't know. This is a paid avatar, but it's a very base-like name. But we have the reason I'm still commentating this one, usually I would skip, is that we have the Bast, the Zabu, the Mr. Negative, all on turn 1. So we're going to be able to have a turn 3 Mr. Negative that's 3 power. All right, next up we have Bambi Blitz. The first location is Eternity Range. We have Zabu, so if we can draw into Mr. Negative, we lose our Mystique, unfortunately, which is not great. If we can draw into Mr. Negative, then we'll be able to do it on 3. Let's go ahead and play the Zabu into the left lane, and then we'll see. We'll see what we pull into. We might just play our Bishop out. We might, I don't know. I don't know what else we do. We do get the Mr. Negative. Let's go ahead and play that. We will probably have to skip on 4. Now, they had the Yondu. I assume that this is some kind of like death deck. Never mind. The Yondu, the Electro. This is a Galactus deck. I don't like that at all. Let's go ahead and skip here. We have the inverted Iron Man still somewhere in our deck. So if they end up using Galactus here, we could do Iron Man Rogue to protect ourselves from any kind of like null plays, and a couple of other. Ooh, there is the inverted Iron Man. Now the only issue is that a lot of times a Galactus deck will run a Leech. Now they have 6 energy this turn, unless they're doing a last turn one. We're gonna skip, see what they play. Is it the Galactus? It is the Galactus. So yeah, Bambi Blitz, are you a bot? I don't know if you're a bot or not. I don't know if bots can even play Galactus, but we did make sure that we don't gain initiative. We now have the inverted Iron Man, we have the Adam Warlock, we have the Rogue to steal away their abilities, and then the Wolfsbane, which is going to give us 7. I think Rogue, even though it's going to be lower than something like a Bishop, is going to be important for us to be able to play, just in case they do a null. In case they have both expensive Series 5s, then we'll be able to steal it away here. The Hobgoblin's not going to be able to come over. The Death is not going to be able to do it. We just have too many cards that we're able to flood, and we played it a little bit too cautiously. We're going to have a pretty large lane to be able to get the 2-cube win. Let's go ahead and take it and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Joe. And Joe is talking about our mama, so we're going to snap on turn 1 on him. We have the Zabu, we have the Mr. Negative. Now, they could leech whatever we have, so we're going to, even if we get an inverted Iron Man, we're going to play it much earlier than we would normally. But as far as starts to a game, besides having Bast and Zabu and Mr. Negative, this is probably the best we could hope for. And then the Super Flow comes down, which is unfortunate for them. Decent for us, because they're going to have to probably use their Reality Stone here to change this location. That's if they have it. They do. And so they change it. It is now Titan. Titan doesn't help us. We do have our Rogue to be able to steal this Soul Stone away. Or if they flip into Elysium, we're going to be able to flood everything onto the board. We're going to have to hope for something that is an inverted 0 cost. So I guess really only our Adam Warlock and our Iron Man, right? Otherwise, we can't play over here because of Elysium, even with, I guess, Arcera. Arcera would still be 4. Is the only way that we can play over there. They can push some decently easy cards in their stones, and we still don't know what kind of deck they're running. We don't know. We know they're running Thanos. We don't know what kind of Thanos list they're running. Let's play the Bast. That's going to set all of these to 3. That gives us a pretty good jump, a pretty good boost. And we're still kind of biding time. They could do Leech here, though. We probably shouldn't have held, should we? Okay, the She-Hulk is fine, and the Space Stone is fine. We probably shouldn't have held here, but we did. And we didn't get punished for it. We have the Adam Warlock now, so we can play that over there. That doesn't give us the lead, though. Is the only issue. We could do Adam Warlock. We could do Rogue. And then I don't know that we hold any of our cards. We're gonna hold Mystique. It's either holding Mojo or holding Mystique. We could copy the Rogue, which is gonna have, I think, the Soul Stone. but I think this is going to be capped out. I think the mojo is going to be pretty decent for us. The Leech comes down in the left lane, but anticipating it, we did flood most of our cards on the board. They have the She-Hulk in the right lane, but we now have the Soul Stone. That will hurt both of their cards, helps ours just a little bit, boosts them back up. And then now on the final turn, that's not what we wanted to see. Okay, so the Bishop could come down over here, but it's not enough over there. Either one of these would have been better for us. Wolfsbane could have been used. The Bishop earlier would have been really, really good. Unfortunately, our draws don't line up enough or well enough that we're able to find a way to outpace them. We did have the anticipation on the Leech play, but we're going to have to retreat. The Iron Man is really, really critical in like this less greedy version. Unless we get a good target for Rogue, then the Mystique is fine. Or if we get two good lanes for Mojo, we get our Bishop early or Angela early. But Iron Man is a really big enabler for those higher rolls. And so unfortunately, even though we got Mr. Negative very early on, we did have to retreat for the 4, which does hurt. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Babby again. And I think they left on us on turn 1 before, right? We're going to see if they do the same thing. We have our Bast. We do have Mr. Negative, so it's not a completely like in the dark snap. We just don't have Zabu to enable the Mr. Negative on 3. But even having Mr. Negative on 4 is pretty decent. And so, especially at 3 power versus the -1. So they have the Sunspot come down in the left lane. We are going to go ahead and do Angela into mid. We can do Mojo, so if it looks like they're going to cap it out, I want to sneak that in there a little bit later rather than curve it out early. The Lizard is big. This looks like a Shuri deck. And so we do get Mystique. Let's go ahead and play Mojo. We're probably going to play Mr. Negative here as well. Oh, this is not a Shuri deck with the Electro. This now looks like a ramp deck that runs Dr. Doom and Odin and Arrow, maybe a double trigger. We do, oh man, these are our best cards and we drew into them. We have our high end now. The Professor X is massive, unfortunately massive. They are able to curve into a Professor X on 4. We do get the Asgard win, so we draw into 2 additional resources here. We have the Rogue, which could steal one of their cards away. So unfortunate, though. We're going to play Iron Man to the left. We can copy it on the last turn with Mystique, and then maybe we hit it with a Wolfsbane in the left lane. I don't know. Without having either of these inverted, that takes away our high roll. We are much closer to a mid roll, but with having the Monster Island, that is, I think, going to potentially save us here. They do use Arrow to try and pull our card over. Since we only played 1, it doesn't end up working. We can copy the right lane. That's going to push us to 24. Unless they cap out this lane, it's going to bring them down a bit because of the Lizard. And then our highest power card is going to be, Bishop. And we can't play Bishop first because we need our Mystique to copy the Iron Man. We could also do Rogue, but since we turn first, there's no ongoing cards here. Let's do Rogue just for the Flare. It doesn't matter which one we do. Bishop's not going to buff up from the cards we play. So they get the really early Muir Island lock. Let's see if we can get the left lane. Let's see if they stick it out. So the Arrow does look like maybe it's a Dr. Doom that just runs a Spice of Professor X. So I'm curious what they have. We do get the quick retreat after the very nice Professor X, the early Professor X. We'll take the retreat where we can. Let's try and get like one, I don't know, Shuri or Thanos game in between here with that. That doesn't end in a retreat or an unfortunate draw and Leech turn. All right, next up we have Kaladin, and they're running a Thanos list. Let's see if we can maybe take on a Thanos. If it hits its high roll, it can perform against the Thanos list, but in most matches and most matchups, it is going to be a little bit unfavored. And so ideally, this is a deck that's going to be a little bit better once the balance patch comes down and nerfs Thanos in the very near future. So we get Bast. That's going to put our Iron Man to 3, Bishop, all of our key cards to 3. Well, a couple of our key cards to 3. Go ahead and play Bishop into mid. If we end up getting our Rogue, we can steal the Soul Stone away. They skip here. Interesting. So maybe they're going to come down with a She-Hulk on this next turn. We do get our Mr. Negative to play on 4. So not the best. We also already have our Iron Man, but also not the worst. The Iron Man into a Mystique combo can be pretty devastating. So they play the She-Hulk, the Mind Stone. They get the free card from the Raft. Do we think they're going to use... Oh, man. Do we think they're going to use their leech this turn? I'm going to opt into saying yes. I think they're going to. So I'm going to do Angela. I'm going to do Iron Man. If the Sarah gets hit, if the Mojo, the Zabu, it's not great, but it's okay. Our best bet would be top decking into Mystique on this last turn so that we can utilize that as well. The leech is a really low tempo play. And so I guess an arrow could really, really hurt us, could really impact us. Actually, maybe not, because we are already winning in this lane. Ooh. And then we do get the Mystique. So they have the 2 resources. They have the free one from the raft and then whatever else they play. So I guess technically they could do Blue Marvel, but we're going to copy the Iron Man and then we're going to do Mojo and Zabu. They have been leeched, but it's okay. I think between buffing up our Angela, getting the Mystique that's going to copy the Iron Man, I think we have a decent shot to win this one because I think they will split the resources, not knowing which lane we're going to play into, and we're just going to play away from that. They do split. They play the Helicarrier to the right, they play Magneto to the left, but it can't pull anything because we max it out. They can't get our Bishop out of the middle location. We have the Mystique come down. I think we are going to win this one against the leech play just by playing heads up, knowing that it was very likely to come down. And so if you don't have some kind of enabler like your Lockjaw, then doing the leech play is such a low tempo play that you can usually find a way to win. And luckily we got a very good top deck there. We're gonna go ahead and take the 4 cubes, and that is where we're gonna end the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. And as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.